Hey guys, Kid Creep here. You startled me. Now, unfortunately, you couldn't have come at a worse time. I'm just trying to get some shut-eye out here, but it is so damn hot and humid, I can't seem to get comfortable. I haven't felt dry in days, and I'm sitting here sweating in just my clothes. Today, I guess we should talk about hot weather shelters. Now, personally, when conditions are like this, I just cannot stop thinking about being on top of a snow-capped mountain. Summer really isn't my season. So over the years, I've picked up some pretty cool ways of protecting myself from all of our favorite summertime threats. Now, what prompted this was our gracious sponsor, Venture Surplus, put out a really great video talking about tarp shelters. And now, in my opinion, the tarp shelter, or Poncho tarp shelter, is the best hot weather shelter that you can use. But in this video, I just want to go over some really cool options that I've picked up over the years because I hate being hot and sweaty. So if you're like me, then this is the video for you. Now, some of the problems that we're going to run into out here in the summer aren't just going to be the weather. Now, of course, there's rain and flooding, but there's also bugs and nasty little critters trying to crawl up into your clothes while you're trying to take a nap against a tree. But before we get into it, I do want to thank Venture Surplus for not just putting out a really awesome video on such a great subject, but also for sponsoring this video. I highly recommend after watching this, you guys head on over there because they've got a great selection of tents, tarps, ponchos, all of the sleeping gear that you could possibly want, as well as ready rope, because you can't set up a nice poncho shelter without some cordage. So after this video, make sure you head on over to Venture Surplus, pick up some of the essentials, and use code KidCreep at checkout for a nice 10% discount code. So definitely give them some love. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'm gonna try to get some sleep because I'm starting to see demons.
The first shelter we're going to look at is tents. These are by far the most popular option among casual outdoorsmen. It's like bringing a house into the woods. A freestanding tent and rainfly shelter is going to be the most comfortable option on this list, while also having the best weather and critter protection. Being able to completely seal yourself and your gear off from the weather and bugs makes this the most luxurious option. We know the weather can be a threat year-round, but bugs really can make you sick if you're out for a while. If you get bit enough times, one of those bastards is bound to carry something nasty. I can tell you firsthand, Lyme sucks. Now, because this is our heaviest option on the list, when it comes to tents, I like to go big or go home. The one you're seeing here is a US Marine Corps 2-man tent made by Diamond Brand or Eureka. If I'm the only occupant, I'll be living like a king and can basically use it like a main base of operations.
Hello MTV and welcome to my crib.
S2 Underground on YouTube made a great video on TOCs, or Tactical Operations Centers, highlighting the importance of having a sturdy shelter for protecting not just you, but also sensitive equipment. I highly recommend you watch that video. However, if I am out with a buddy, the tent and rainfly can be carried separately to split up the load, and then we can get closer than we ever wanted to be at night. It's not perfect though. Like I said, it's the heaviest and least packable option. Although it has the greatest weather protection, adding rainfly will significantly reduce the breathability of your tent. Opening it up with mesh panels certainly makes it feel less like a sauna, but you'll then sacrifice rain protection. And being the slowest option to set up and take down makes it not suitable for non-permissive environments. Here, it took me about 12 minutes to set up and 9 minutes to pack away. That's why you won't find infantrymen pitching a nice cozy tent in the field at an LPOP, and mountaineers not only choose lighter and hastier shelters to move faster, but a tent also struggles on a 40-degree slope. However, you will find militaries pitching tents at forward operating bases and mountaineers hanging out in them at base camps before their ascent so they can stay nice and protected from the elements before stepping off. Overall, these are a great option for both casual outdoorsmen as well as some of the most daring. You just need to know which situation will dictate the need for something so heavy with this level of protection. So let's get a little more minimal. Bug nets alone are an extremely lightweight and effective option to keep bugs off of you. However, recently I found something really cool that solves a lot of the problems with traditional bug nets. This is the Iguana Enhanced Bed Net System, or EBNS. Some of you may be familiar with the Katoma IBNS, or Improved Bed Net System, and this is basically the same thing except it's woodland, so it's better. It's a pop-up shelter system, which means you basically throw it like a Pokeball and it instantly transforms into a shelter with zero setup. Well, for the most part. This one's a little sticky. But no need to remember knots to string it up from a tree, fight tent poles, or hammer in stakes. This thing has just about the fastest setup time on the list, so at the end of a long day when you just want to black out, this thing really does the trick. It's also extremely breathable, so it's my top pick for sleeping on those hot, humid summer nights. The only issue is that it's not really designed for rain protection. The Katoma IBNS does have an optional rain fly, but they can be hard to find and usually cost more than the bed net itself. Also, it's fully enclosed, so you lose that excellent breathability you get from a pop-up bed net. I much prefer to keep a USGI wet weather poncho handy so I can quickly add some rain protection in the event of inclement weather. For a hasty setup, I just like to throw the poncho right on over the top, but again, not super breathable. Creating an A-frame shelter is the best way to add water protection to the system without significantly reducing the breathability. A raised A-frame is preferred, but I was on a time crunch filming this year, so this is what we got. Outdoor Gear Reviews on YouTube has done several really great presentations on these pop-up bed net systems, so definitely go check those out for more info. The pros are, it's the most breathable and has one of the fastest setups and the fastest takedowns. It's also very lightweight and super packable. Now the cons. Speaking of packability, one of the biggest downsides is that although it packs down much quicker than a tent or even a tarp shelter, it's super awkward and it feels like you're going to break it every time. Those fiberglass poles feel like they're going to snap, but miraculously they don't, but it just doesn't make me feel too good. Also, the lack of a rain fly on mine, as well as the price of the Katoma one, kind of stinks, but I'm a huge fan of tarp/poncho shelters, so it's not really a deal breaker for me. Speaking of tarp shelters, like I said at the beginning of the video, Venture Surplus made a great video detailing the many different styles, hows, and whys, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these. What I will say is that for hot weather, the tarp/poncho shelter is my preferred method of rain protection because they are extremely spacious, breathable, and versatile. They have the opposite problem of the bed net system where it has great weather protection, but no bug protection. So a tarp plus the pop-up bed net really is the match made in heaven in the summertime and is my preferred system. The A-frame, lean-to, and Ranger Diamond are the styles that I use most often, and all for different reasons. Definitely go check out Venture's video to learn more about how to create these different types of shelters. Now, the biggest issue with tarp shelters is that you really do need trees to set them up. But what's great about the USGI poncho is that with the use of the metal button snaps along the edges, we can transform it into a makeshift bivy. And the poncho liner can be tied into the grommets, as God intended, to line the poncho and make a very rudimentary sleep system. So this here is a standard poncho liner that Venture Surplus sent me, and these are all the insulation you're going to need in hot weather. They retain a good amount of warmth even when they're wet, and they're extremely light. I'm hard pressed to find anything on the civilian market that beats these things for the price. I also have one of the new versions of the USMC system, and these use a full-length zipper to transform this thing into an ultralight sleeping bag. But it's not super necessary in hot weather, and it just adds more weight and bulk to something that's best known for being super light and packable. I like to save this one for scaling up my sleeping bags in the colder seasons. The poncho liner plus poncho is certainly better than nothing, but the bivy configuration is not its strongest one. It kind of just looks like a really messy burrito. So the USGI poncho is an excellent poncho and shelter, but it really struggles as a bivy. Conversely, last year I did a video on the really cool outdoor research wall creeper, which worked great as a bivy and made for a pretty good mountain shelter, but it was a pretty miserable poncho. Definitely go check out that video if you haven't already. But the moral of the story there is, multi-purpose kit will generally put most of their skill points into one or two roles, while the rest just kind of lag behind. So I guess we'll talk about bivvies now. If you don't know what a bivvy is, they're essentially a waterproof sack that can be used to add weather protection to your sleeping bag. These are very popular amongst ultralight backpackers, mountaineers, climbers, and infantrymen. The bivvy allows the user to take shelter anywhere, regardless of the terrain or space. If you fits, you sits, and by sits I mean hopefully survive the shiver bivvy. In the high alpine above the tree line, you won't be making an A-frame tarp shelter, or stringing up a hammock. And although a freestanding tent can work without trees, the bivvy sack is much better suited to the high angle of a mountain. However, for hot weather, the bivvy sack is just going to be way too hot. Even without a sleeping bag or poncho liner stuff inside of it, this waterproof and windproof Gore-Tex USGI bivvy from the old modular sleep system, or MSS, doesn't really breathe enough in the summer and will trap way too much moisture. If you're using the bivvy to protect you from the rain, you'll get drenched anyway from your sweat. Also, it doesn't fully seal at the head. This is of course to keep you from suffocating, but this also allows pests to get in there while you're sleeping. It's for these reasons that I'm a huge fan of the US Marine Corps' new improved bivvy for use in the warmer months. The zipper on this one fully seals, and then you can open the waterproof window to dump heat and breathe while still staying protected from the bugs thanks to the bug screen. And the flexible wires in the headpiece keep the cover off of your face while you're sleeping, which is a mild inconvenience with traditional bivvies. It's like an ultra minimalist one-man tent. Unfortunately, the improved bivvies are not easy to find in good condition and with the bug screen still intact. And if you do find one, well, they're not very cheap. Also, the bivvy only protects you, unlike a tent or a tarp shelter. If it can't fit in the bivvy with you, it's got to stay out in the elements. In my opinion, the USMC sleep system is much better suited to warm weather, whereas the MSS is much better suited to cold weather, hence why I have both. Of course, both these bivvies are designed to be married up with their respective sleeping bags. I think I'll compare the old MSS and the new USMC improved sleep systems sometime in the future, so stay tuned for that. I briefly want to touch on hammocks as they're a very popular option in the summer, and they're kind of like weather-resistant bivvies that just hang from trees instead of laying on the ground. They're very light and also pretty comfy, and they keep you off the wet, muddy ground in the rainy seasons, which is nice. And you don't even need to carry a sleeping pad if you're using one of these, so that's even more weight that you can shed from your system. From what I gather, you either love hammocks or you hate them. Personally, I haven't used them much, and it shows. However, the hammock relies on you finding two healthy trees that won't collapse under your weight and are just close enough for you to string it up, which kind of limits where you can bed down for the night. Also, if the temps drop, they don't layer very well, because your fat ass will compress the loft of a poncho liner or a sleeping bag, giving you cold butt syndrome. Hammocks require an underquilt, which can kind of be fashioned from a poncho liner, but not really. But most hammock sleepers have their own specialized system built around their hammock. It's not really my forte, but I recommend you give them a chance. See how you like them. So this last one's for all you hardcore guys that have learned to sleep anywhere without a luxurious sleep system. Your clothing is your first line of defense against the elements. There's nothing better than sitting up against a tree or using your pack's waist pad as a pillow and taking a midday nap after getting a few miles into your hike. Quality outer layers will not only protect your skin from getting torn to shreds while bushwhacking, but can also seal you off from bugs while you're stationary. I'm always wearing a boonie hat, so the old style military issue head net will mate up nicely and keep the bugs off my face. My jacket is an old BDU top that I modified by moving the pockets around to make it tuck in more comfortably to seal off the bottom, and then I've also added Velcro around the cuffs to seal off the sleeves. You can learn more about making these easy modifications to a BDU from my previous video on raid modding. Lastly, these BDU 2.0 pants that Venture sent me have the cuff ties that are typically present on the issued camis. You can use elastic boot bands or boot gaiters to seal off your ankle so ticks and spiders can't take the expressway up to your junk while you're trying to get some shut-eye. And of course, treating all of your clothes with bug repellency not only gives you increased protection from bugs, but it also keeps DEET and other nasty chemicals off your skin, or ideally you can treat them with permethrin. Of course, in the event of rain, using the USGI poncho as an actual poncho or just throwing over yourself is your best bet in hot weather. Gore-Tex hard shells, rain suits, etc. are all way too hot for hot and humid environments. So the big open design of the poncho is ideal.
Oh, God, you guys have got to stop doing that. Well, I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you learned something. So seriously, thank you guys so much for watching. Summer is not over yet, and I've got some pretty cool stuff lined up for the next couple of months. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.